It began with a black flame burning over a grave, an unnatural blaze which drank the moonlight from the skies above Helgoland. He was warned not to approach, but Thorir had no fear of the witchcraft employed by the dead berserker Agnar. Ulf had cautioned that all men who tried to rob that Draugr either died or met terrible and strange fates. But Thorir was unafraid of such tales, and he knew that treasures lay within that tomb. As he journeyed up the side of the mountain to the cursed burial mound, a fierce storm arose and blew him backwards, exhausting him as he tried with all his strength to march forward. He found shelter by a great rock and fell asleep, hoping to wait out this unnatural tempest that swirled around Agnar's grave. But his dreams were most troubling, for he saw a dead man emerge from the earth and crawl down the mountainside towards the place where he slumbered. It loomed over him and was both terrifying and glorious to behold, for the undead mound dweller was the largest man Thorir had ever seen and was dressed in splendour for battle. His dead lips parted as he whispered, "Thorir, the Thorskafjord, you are a brave man to try and rob my corpse of the wealth I earned in life, but leave me to my rest. I know of a far greater prize, worthy of a courageous fool such as you, which lies not far from this place." Thorir smiled and answered, "Is this prize guarded by more rotting corpses like yourself, Agnar?" To which the dead man replied, "The treasure lies in a cave north of here, on the shores of the giant sea, and it is guarded by a Viking named Val and all his sons. They are very much alive, but they have met with a most unfortunate fate. Leave this place and rob those men instead." The next day, Thorir and his companions travelled north around Finnmark to Blesseberg, and they saw it. A great waterfall poured down the face of the mighty cliffs, behind which was a gaping, dark cave, just as the dead man had foretold. At the top of the cliff, they tied a rope around a great ancient tree and lowered themselves down behind the cascading waters into the shadowy cavern. They ventured deep into the darkness and lit torches to help guide their way. But after some time, a great, foul-smelling gale of wind came blasting from the depths of the cave and extinguished the torches, plunging them into terrifying, inky black shadow. Thorir called out, "Agnar, did you send us here to die in the dark?" And then, immediately, a ghostly light appeared, which they used to guide their way through the dark passageway. Then they heard a noise. The sound of huge creatures breathing deeply, louder than any animal Thorir had ever encountered. The rays of light then seemed to grow brighter as they reflected off of great mounds of shining gold, more wealth than they could have ever imagined. But unfortunately, upon the top of each pile of treasure lay huge, winged, serpent-like creatures, and each of them wore a helmet and had great swords lying under their wings. This was the fate of the Viking Val and all his sons, for their greed for gold had transformed them into horrifying, venomous dragons. Thorir and his company drew their swords and ran to the sleeping beasts, stabbing their blades through the dragon's scales and into their great, beating hearts to slay them as quickly as possible. The dragons remained still, so Thorir approached the largest of them and pulled off the great helmet that lay upon its head. Its eyes then opened. It stood up and stretched its mighty wings and grabbed Thorir's companion, Thran the Tall, within its jagged jaws, and it flew out of the cave towards the waterfall. Each and every dragon then arose and spewed poisonous flames from their mouths, filling the chamber with venom, fire, and death. The men rushed after the dragon that had taken Thran the Tall, whilst the few men who waited on the cliff top outside shuddered at the fearsome noises they heard coming from the earth beneath them, and were astonished when venomous dragons came bursting out of the waterfall, spraying cold river water and burning poison around them. A brave man named Bjorn saw Thran the Tall within the largest dragon's jaws, so he ran forward with his great spear and thrust it into the creature's guts, which dealt it a mortal blow, though it caused a shower of poisonous blood to rain down upon Bjorn's face, which killed him instantly, whilst his companion, Hjörning, received but a small splash of dragon's blood upon his foot, which caused him agony so great he could scarcely endure it. The dragons either died of their wounds or fled the cave, never to return, so Thorir and his surviving men claimed the dragon's gold, which the dead man Agnar had promised them. Thorir was now known as Gold Thorir, for he was famed for his great wealth, and when he returned home to Iceland, he became renowned for his great deeds. Though, it is fair to say that, as he grew older, he grew meaner, troublesome, and harder for his countrymen to deal with. He one day hid his gold and refused to share any more of it, becoming more and more isolated from friends and family, until one day he disappeared entirely. No one knew what happened to Gold Thorir or where he ended up, but around the time that he vanished, a great dragon appeared in Iceland, often seen flying around the mountains near Thorir's farm at a place called the Gold Falls, and some brave men claimed that they had seen the dragon sleeping on Thorir's old chests of gold. Had the dragon killed Thorir and claimed his gold? Or had Thorir become a dragon himself, just like the Viking Val and all his sons? Either way, it is certain that far from Iceland, and deep within a tomb on the shores of Hålogaland, an undead berserker rested, at peace in the knowledge that the fool who sought to rob his grave had met a most unfortunate fate.